All right,
All
guys.
right.
Hey.
Brian, you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, I just want to say, hey, thanks for everyone for coming. We'll just give everyone a minute or two to get in if they're running late, and then we'll kind of introduce ourselves and go from there. All right, we'll give one more minute and then we'll get going.
Yeah, given that this is recorded, I don't think we need to wait very long.
No, we're not. I'm gonna give until 11:02 and then we'll go. All right, let's get started. Brett, you want to introduce yourself? I'll go after you.
Sounds good. Hey, everybody. Brett Harris here. I work for Siemens Healthineers, which is a big medical device company. We produce things like MRI machines and lab diagnostics and things of that nature. I am our cybersecurity officer for the Americas region. I've previously been in product security, R&D, and IT. And Brian?
Hey guys, thanks, Brett. I'm Bryan Taylor. I work at Cybellum, which is a Israeli cybersecurity startup where we, help like large medical device manufacturers, automotive, industrial, pretty much anyone who has software, help secure their software and understand things like, product security, lifecycle management. My history, I'm a pen tester, web pen tester. I have my AWAE. I worked at CrowdStrike before this, as you can probably see by that picture back there. Worked at several other places like Akamai and RSA about 10 years ago. So been up and down the stack security wise. Here at Cybellum, I'm the director of solutions engineering for all North America. So I run all of our technical activities on the front end. Nice to meet y'all. All right. So we got we're just going to be kind of loose for this. And, any questions you guys have, please put them in there. We'd love to answer them. I just have like a few overview. All right. So just a few of these just to kind of guide the conversation. So first of all, what is this, right? What is DEF CON? DEF CON is my favorite hacking conference. I think the best hacking conference out there. Sometimes you'll see 30 to 40,000 hackers in Vegas all at the same time. It tails off the end of Black Hat and has B-sides between it. And it's typically I call it more hackery, more technical conference compared to Black Hat, which in my opinion is more vendor. So this year is definitely an interesting year because at the beginning of the year we found out that the of the the people who ran the contract, I think they were working with them for 24 years. They pulled DEF CON's contract and said we're not doing it anymore. We're done. There were some hacks last year, but there's hacks every year, so who knows the real reason there. But luckily, the organizers, Dark Tangent and crew, they do a great job, and they put out the data that DEF CON is uncanceled this year, and it's going to be at a brand new venue, right? So it's going to be at the Las Vegas Conference Center, which is a huge venue, and this is kind of one of the first times, at least in my history, I've been going probably for the last 8 to 10 years. This is probably one of the first times in my last history where it's not across 3 to 4 casinos, which for me had always been tough to manage myself. There's so much, and honestly, I went last year with and brought one of our sales reps, a really cool guy. Um, we had a great time, but what we realized is even two people isn't enough to cover all the topics and tracks and things like that DEF CON offers. So, it's good to bring a bigger team if you can, if you want to cover a lot. If you want to specialize in like one or two events, that's a little different. But that's kind of what's going on this year. It's all in the convention center. It's 3 different floors. And so, good place to stay anywhere near there, really, and anywhere that you can get a tram over there. So
Yeah, I
those are
feel
some of
like
the
this is
things.
a really positive improvement in the DEF CON setup. I think they did us a really big favor by canceling that contract. Um, as long as I've been going, which isn't as long as you, it's always been spread across those three hotels, and it's been, even if you want to go and say like, oh, you're looking and there's a talk that I'm really interested in, you a lot of times can't make it over to the space to be able to get there and participate. So previously, you would really have to plan out like, okay, I'm gonna kind of be in this hotel today, and I'm gonna, hit up talks over there, and maybe, after lunch, I'm gonna go check out this other area that's in a totally different hotel that's maybe like a 20-minute walk away from where you currently are. So I'm really excited to be in this new venue. I think it's going to be a really awesome and positive change for DEF CON.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I'll tell you, me personally, when I was going the first few years, I got lost. I'd be going to one event and I'd be trying to follow the way through the casinos, and I get turned around sometimes. So it was kind of funny because you'd go to one event and then you'd try to go make it to another one, you wouldn't, but then you'd walk through some interesting stuff on the way there. Like I remember last time this happened to me, they were doing like a mustache and beard contest. We walked in and like one of my buddies just jumped into the mustache conference and he ended up getting second. It was pretty cool. So you do find some interesting things like that, but with it all being in one area, you get the best of both worlds, right? Which is great. So, and we'll
Yeah,
go
we'll
over
see
kind
what
of,
happens. I think
yeah,
this
we'll
is
see
going
what
to be
happens.
a learning experience for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll see, you know, how everything shakes out. So there's some resources we'll talk about later on. But we just wanted to cover that quick. What is DEF CON? Here's a shot from last year. This is from the like chill out room, which you can come in any time of the day. It's wide open, huge room. They've got different music playing. It's just kind of a relaxed, cool area to hang out and meet other people. DEF CON, it's a bunch of engineers and hackers. We're not always the most social people, but everyone I've met at DEF CON has been really nice and really open to talking to me and going through things. So the more you can put yourself out there, the better.
I would
Let's
say
let's talk about.
that's
Go
like
ahead.
would be my first you know, myth that I would be dispelling here on this talk is that, there's all these hackers and they're scary and, they're trying to do nefarious things. It's not like that at all. I mean, this is probably the most, you know, accepting and cool and chill group of people that you will meet any place. So, you shouldn't have any fear about just like jumping right in and, talking to people or, having any fear in general.
Yeah. And I'd say, the one exception, not really an exception to that, but the one thing to look out there is if you're going to some place like, the automotive hacking village or the aerospace village or biohacking village, the only people you don't want to disrupt are the ones doing the active hacking challenges. So if you see guys at their computer and they're all lined up in a row and they're doing stuff, excuse me, leave them alone, let them be, let them focus. Everyone else though is great. And it's not just the people there. Honestly, last year we went to the biohacking village and I actually went to all these villages last year, but the biohacking village we spent a lot of time in because we do a lot of medical device work, and we talked to every single vendor that was there, and they're all great people. So it wasn't just the attendees and the hackers; it's also the presenters and the vendors and all these other people that the government people that are associated with like the aerospace village. They're great. I met Brandon over at aerospace last year. He's a fantastic guy. He ran the village last year, did a great job. So a lot of cool stuff there. Do you want to kind of
Right.
talk about
So,
the villages, Brett? Or
yeah, the way DEF CON is organized is around this concept of villages. So it's a really like decentralized setup versus other conferences where, and you can see here, I've got a little visitor to this talk here. So yeah, that's set up around these villages, and each village is in control of their own destiny. There's some central conference organizers which help with space and logistics and things like that. But for the most part, everything is built around this concept of villages, where each village is dedicated to a particular topic. Here, in the first column, you can see the biohacking village. Bryan already mentioned that. That's about, medical device hacking, but it's also about, implantables or other things that you can do with the human body or things like that. Car hacking village, aerospace village. Then there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to be technical for. So there's lockpicking village. There's um, like physical entry. I forget what that one's called. Um, and then probably one of my favorites is the social engineering, seeing what people can get out of, corporations or other people just from talking to them. I think that's one of the most interesting things at the whole conference, personally. I don't know,
Yeah.
Bryan, which ones do you like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I like the biohacking. I like the aerospace is super interesting because they're doing things like live satellite hacking. So, for example, I think it's on this one, right? So this is from last year. In the bottom right corner, and this was like one of the first time they actually allowed hackers to do this. They 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 actually hacked real satellites that were in orbit. So they had kind of a hack-a-sat challenge is what it's called. And you really need like a team of 5 people, and you need like a master hacker. You need a guy who's got his PhD in orbital mechanics. Like you need a whole setup to do this, and they've got probably at least 7 to 10 teams, competing against each other, and you can actually see what they're doing on the live satellite map, and it's really cool. So I like the aerospace one. Um, and the automotive one's good. Last year, the other thing, well, let me back up. The cool thing about the aerospace one was they also had tons of different things to test. So they had like example drones, they had example, satellites, they had all sorts of cool things you could put your hands on. Aerospace last year was more focused on, at least when I went, it was more focused on actual challenges. There wasn't as many, like vendors there or things like that. So there wasn't as many people to talk to. Um, that being said, I'll kind of show you a few things here because we'll talk about badges next. So this was me last year. I went badge crazy. What is a badge, right? So a badge. So this was kind of the entry badge last year for DEF CON. This is actually the presenter badge, or not presenter, the press badge. Right? So they had all different colors
Right.
of these that you could get.
Here,
Um,
I've got mine here also. Let's see. I've got my so orange was village. I see you've got the press badge. And then I think green maybe was the standard badge. Um, but yeah, you were saying about badges in general.
Yeah, so the cool thing is a lot of these villages, they have their own badges. And even if you go online, and frankly, a great resource is the DEF CON subreddit. So I'm going to plug that, our DEF CON. I will post this there probably tomorrow or whenever we get it finished recording. But that's a great place. They've got DEF CON area maps. They've got the speakers and talks. They've got, the different uh, swag, the different badges, like, and there's badges that are outside of even the ones you get in the village. You can go with groups that make their own DIY badges, and they have contests around them, and you can compete in them. What I would say
You
is
know
I
what,
went badge
Bryan?
crazy.
Maybe let's
Yeah.
back up here for a second because, if you've never been to DEF CON before, this probably doesn't make any sense to you. So, like when you get to DEF CON, now we've talked a little bit about the setup and how there's all these different villages. And Bryan was talking about, okay, the aerospace village, and there's some cool stuff that you can do there. Um, and there's all kinds of stuff going on all over the con. So there's, these different events like CTFs and things like that. There's hands-on labs. So if you go to any of these villages, there's going to be intros into whatever is going on there. For instance, like car hacking village. One year I spent just my entire time at the car hacking village. I had no experience in cars whatsoever. I was like, okay, this is going to be cool. I'm going to learn something new technical that I've never done before. And so I spend my time there, like chatting with the people running the booth and, learning the different techniques for how to access the car's systems. Um, And then a big thing that it goes on at DEF CON is badge hacking. So as part of your entrance to DEF CON, you get the official DEF CON badge. And so there will be some kind of hacking challenge or something around that. The last year's one that we were just showing, there's no electronics on it. It was just plastic, and it was like a decryption type of challenge. Um, Almost universally, there are some kind of electronics on it, and there's something that makes it interactive that drives you to interact with your other co-conference attendees. So right there, like when people talk about badges, and or they say the DEF CON badge, that's like the thing, that's your entrance to DEF CON. But then, like Brian was mentioning, there's all kinds of other badges that you can buy at the various villages that have other kinds of challenges associated with them. So, Brian, you are going to show off a few of those badges now.
Yeah, sure. So this is the aerospace. So they actually had multiple badges. So you could get. I know there was a one that sold out really quickly. Was the car hacking one last year? They had a Back to the Future badge, and that just sold out in like the first day or less. But there's some really cool other badges, and like in the medical one, I got the. I'll show you the heart in a minute, but they only released it at like certain times a day. So you've got to go in the village and talk to the people and ask them about it. The other things are these badges are not cheap. These are expensive badges. You're probably going to be paid between 250 and $500 for each of these badges. So I went crazy last year, and this first year I've bought more than one or two. I bought like four, and I'm like not going to do that again. So my advice is only really buy them if you're going to actually participate in the challenge that is associated with the badge. Because a lot of them, so like for example, this is the aerospace one or one of them. It's the Wright brothers sitting on a satellite. And then if you look at the back, there's actually all sorts of pins and connectors. This one actually has Wi-Fi on it. So some of them have Bluetooth, some of them Wi-Fi, some of them have serial ports. It just depends. So that's that one. The biohacking one. Oh, here goes my battery. Biohacking one that I was mentioning is this one, which was a really cool like light up heart thing. I just love this one aesthetically, which is why I bought it. I was actually messing around with the aerospace and the car ones, but this one's got a micro USB port on the back. It's got a couple other ways to connect. So they have like websites on the back where you can go and find challenges and things like that. The car one last year, this is the one I got. It was like a big motor. Um, if you can see the back, there's like tons and tons of chip level stuff on this. So and again, this has USB-C on it, right? So all of these typically have some way to connect so that you can go and do the challenges and experience that. And also, what's cool about this year is there's so many more villages than we've even mentioned. There's a crypto village, there's an AI village, there's a voting village. I mean, there's pretty
Red
much
team,
everything
blue
you can
team
think of.
villages.
Radio
Um,
frequency village if you're into that,
right.
you know. So all sorts of and what's cool is this year they'll all be in basically the same floor. Like almost all of them are on the first floor. There may be like one or two that are on floor 2 and 3, but last year they were kind of separate casinos, so it was really hard to jump from one to the next. This year it'll be a lot easier, which is another reason I'm so excited that we're doing Las Vegas Convention Center. So
So I think this brings up a good next point, which is you can't do everything.
yeah,
And there's a lot of stuff to do in each of the villages themselves. So you kind of have, if this is your first time going, you kind of have two routes that you can go. You can either jump around and check out each of the villages a little bit and see what's there and get kind of a flavor of what's going on. Maybe participate in some of the, you know, base level like demos and things like that, or like go and deep dive in a particular area and spend, a day, 2 days, maybe the whole conference in that one village. And you really can. You can spend your whole
yeah,
time, you could spend, 24 hours a day, all 3 days. I guess it's not quite 24 hours a day and 3 days, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah,
Participating in a single CTF or participating in a single village. Or
Yeah,
you can spend that time going and jumping around and saying like, okay, I've never done lock picking before. I'm going to go check out that for a couple hours. Satellite hacking, that sounds cool. Let's see what's going on there. We've got an election coming up. Maybe I'm going to go see if, what you can be done with our voting booths. Are those secure? Do we have anything to worry about there? So yeah, you can really do it both ways, but don't go in with an expectation that you're going to be able to do everything. It's just not
yeah.
possible.
Yeah, you really need a full team if you want to do that. And I'll give one more example, like the biomedical village last year. They actually had almost like three levels of interaction, right? So they had two rooms. One of the rooms was a double room, and it was just live hacking contest. Like you had to sign up, you had to get validated. They actually make sure that like you don't take anything outside from that room. Like you had to be approved on a list. So that's another thing is if you want to get involved with one of these, especially with one of the challenges, go and research it ahead of time. Go look it up. Go look it up on the subreddit. Look it up on the vendors' websites. See what you can find and see how you can sign up because you don't want to have to deal with that once you're already at DEF CON, right? So they had a room with that. Then they had another room that had all the vendors in it, and each vendor had one of their own devices with them, and some of them had like huge MRI machines and stuff. So you could
Right, we
like if you
brought an
want to do
X-ray machine.
yeah, exactly. So if you didn't want to do the full like deep dive pen testing, you could go and actually just plug in each device and mess around with it if you wanted. So some of the villages have that level, like I mentioned with aerospace earlier, they've got the hack a sat, then they've got kind of all the demo area, like so it's a good mix, just for level of depth you want to go. Um, that being
And
said,
it's a cool like balance between kind of corporate and non-corporate. So the
yeah,
feel of the conference is very non-corporate. I would say it's gotten like a little bit more corporate over the years. It used to be very much like grassroots, but I think, that's changed a lot over the past few years. Um, but like having that corporate sponsorship, that means that you've got like the real devices, the real stuff from the manufacturers there, and they want you to play around with them and see what you can do with them. So, we brought a mobile X-ray machine. We had our own network there that you could connect to, and we were like, go at it. These are the rules of engagement. Here's what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And it was a great experience for everybody involved.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that was my first time going to the Bio Village last year. I thought it was one of my favorite villages, if not my favorite. So I'm a little biased because, and I'm sure Brett is too, as we work in that industry. But
Yeah.
I love the other ones as well. So let's back up a little bit, and talk about kind of day one. What do you do in the morning on day one? Where do you go? What's the best order of operations in our opinion? What do you want to bring, right? And then we'll kind of talk about staying cyber safe, and just kind of the if you want to be like 100% security, and then kind of degrees of that. So we'll get into that first. You want to kind of talk about just day one, Brad, and typically what you do on day one?
Well, so if this is your first time going, I think actually the best way to meet people starts the evening before, which
Yes.
is at the what's the toxic barbecue. In my opinion, like that's like the number one easy way to go and meet people. It's very informal. There's food already provided. You bring, a six pack of beer or something like that, or whatever, and people are just hanging out. And already by that point, I think you're kind of getting the sense that there's all these challenges, all these games that are going on during DEF CON. That's a big part of the fun. And
Mhm.
so, you know, I think Brian, you're going to talk about parties in a little bit, but
Yeah.
a lot of there are parties that are published, and then there are unpublished parties that maybe there's some kind of hacking challenge or cryptography challenge, something like that, that you have to uncover to find out where to go for the party.
You must
And
be this nerdy to enter.
exactly. And so people are going to be doing those things at the toxic barbecue. They're going to be hanging out, looking at, oh, like what, how do we get into this party? What's happening? What do you think this means? and already starting to like pre-challenge some of that information. Um, but like everyone's there to hang out. It's not a big group. So like once you get into the con itself, it's kind of overwhelming. If you go into any space, it's going to be like thousands of people. Toxic Barbecue is much smaller. It's a really good entry level way to meet people.
Yeah, yeah, and just we'll talk more about parties in a minute, but the one thing that I'd suggest with the parties is, like Brett mentioned, there's different degrees. There's corporate sponsored parties every night. There's individual like open source parties. There's private parties that you got to be in. Most of the parties you can't just walk in. You've got to be on the list, especially for the bigger ones. So there's a DEF CON party planner website you can go to if you look up, just Google it, it should be right there. They also got some more information on the subreddit if you want to go there too. But there's a lot of good links on like which vendors to go to and sign up, because typically you go to the vendor's site and you have to sign up on their site, and then they send you like a free ticket or entry, if you're able to go. So I just go in there. You don't have to go is the cool part, right? So you can go sign up for as much stuff as you can, and then it gives you flexibility when you're at the con to say, oh no, I'm gonna not do this one tonight because I've got this other small party that I want to go to over that. And or oh no, my night freed up. No, I've got two parties I can go to, and I can choose. Maybe some of the people I'm with are going to one or the other. So we'll get into what those actually look like in a bit. Sign up early. So for the con on day one, just to go back to day one,
Yeah,
what I
what's you
recommend.
what do you like to do?
What I like to do, as you can see, I've got a fair amount of DEF CON. Got too many DEF CON hats, too much DEF CON swag. So I like to get to line con early, right? The first place, even or not after that previous day, as Brett mentioned, the first place in the con where you'll meet people is in line con, which is right at the
Right.
start when you go to get your badge, right? So you go and get your badge, get there. You don't have to get there super early, get there somewhat early, so that you can clear through that in hopefully an hour or less. And it's a blast. There's the goons, which are the DEF CON workers. They've got like crazy swag all over them, like shiny. They've got speaker backpacks. They're playing music. People are smacking a beach ball all around, and like things are rolling. It's honestly the most fun line I've ever been in. Let's put it that way. But do that first, and then once you have that, and honestly, I want to pre-order my badge so that I can skip most of that line and get my badge even
Me
earlier.
too.
Once you have that and you can do that, you want to go straight to merch would be my recommendation, because the merch at DEF CON sells out so fast, especially the nicer stuff or the more popular stuff. It'll be gone in like the first 3 to 4 hours max. Like stuff just goes. So if you're
I've
planning to go to
literally
merch,
never been willing to stand in the merch line. The
so
merch line
last year
is
was the first year I
always
did it.
like 2 hours. How long did you wait in line for the merch line?
Hour and a half to two and
Two.
a half hours, something like that. It
Yeah,
was pretty long.
exactly.
Same as
So
line con though. There's like
there's
goons and stuff.
also there's also like the general vendor like I
Yeah,
don't know merch area,
the market.
and if you don't want like the official DEF CON stuff, you can go there and get really awesome DEF CON t-shirts, stickers, like hacking tools, whatever, without having to wait in a 2 hour line. And that's
Yeah,
what I do. You're not
yeah.
catching me in a 2 hour merch line.
So I always go to the swag, not the swag room, the marketplace as I call it, right? And that's
Marketplace,
got
yeah.
like Hack Five, it's got all the big vendors in the space there, EFF's there, like all the good companies are there. There's some awesome T-shirts, as you said. I picked up probably 3 or 4 last year. I bought 2 EFF ones myself, some other ones as well. So there's really cool like Women in Cyber's there, right? Like all those
Hmm.
organizations are there. That stuff does also sell out at some point, but typically you can go day one, day two, whenever you want, and there's no line. You just kind of move around the room. It's a huge room with like tons of vendors, so that's a great spot. Last year was the first year I actually waited in the DEF CON official merch line. I've never done it before. Now I'm usually like you, Brett. I'm like, forget it, screw it. I'm not. If it's an hour or more, like I'm
Not
done.
recommended.
But
Yeah.
last year I was like, look, I'm just gonna go because I've never done this. Like, let's see what it's like. And it's an hour and a half, 2 hour line. If you get there early, it might even be less, or it might be an hour if you can get your pre-order badge and get it early. But I'll tell you, the merch there is just you can't get it anywhere else. Can't buy it online. Can't buy it at anything else. It's the only spot that you're gonna find that stuff, and they have limited quantities. So if you want, like, I probably bought I bought a DEFCON polo. I bought two hats. I bought this, not this shirt, but I bought probably three or four like undershirts, and I think I bought like a kind of like a jacket or something like that. That there's like socks and pants and shirts and hoodies and hats
Whatever
and
you
all
want,
sorts of stuff.
all
Yeah,
the
whatever you want.
things.
So
Yeah,
that's first come first serve, and limited quantity available. So if you do want some of the cool DEFCON 32 stuff, I would go and spend the time in that line. If you don't want to, I 100% agree with Brett. To hang out, go to that other area. They've got a lot of cool stuff there too. And frankly, it's probably a little cheaper in the other area as well. The DEF CON North can get
agreed.
expensive, believe it or
Yeah,
not. So that's kind of like you can see there's varying degrees of day one, right? Brett's gonna get his badge, and then where are you going next, Brett, on day one? You have a plan yet?
no, I don't know what I'm going to do this year. I mean, we're bringing a bunch of at least the software for our medical devices. I don't think we're bringing anything
The
like
device?
what we brought last year.
Yeah,
Maybe like some small ultrasounds, I'm not sure. Um, but I probably gonna have to man our booth there for a while when we first start. Um,
yeah,
so, usually I look at what's available. So, um, there's this thing called Hacker Tracker, which is an app where you can see all of the talks. And so, pre-con, I've downloaded the app, I've gone through and starred. Yeah, there you go. I've
got maps
starred
of the
all the
whole thing.
the
Yeah,
talks that I want to either go to or I want to, um, maybe watch after the conference. A lot of the talks, at least the main stage talks, are all put up on online for you to watch later.
yeah,
The village talks, not necessarily.
yeah,
So if there's a
yeah,
village talk that you're really interested in, like prioritize going to that versus one of the main stage talks.
yeah,
But yeah, I go through and I'll mark, which ones I want to do or I want to try to do, what sounds interesting. And then I'll kind of plan out, okay, I'm going to be in this area. I'm going to spend a couple hours there. I'm going to watch this talk and then see what they've got this year. Um, the first year I went, I wanted to just kind of see everything. And I looked at the map and I was like, I'm just going to go from village to village and see what they have there for a beginner.
yeah.
Like I didn't know anything about lock picking
Right.
and I loved it. And I bought lock picks. I bought practice locks to do while I was there. Um, that was probably one of my first experiences in DEF CON.
Yeah,
Um, you know, network, uh, network packet village. There's definitely going to be some cool labs there, like very beginner kind of stuff that if you've never done it before, you can go and have a really great learning experience in not like a long time. So yeah, just
yeah,
like I would say, like if it were my first con again, I think I would go around and just try and check out all the villages, do a little bit in each one and see what you like.
yeah, 100%. And also, one cool thing that I believe they're bringing back this year that they got rid of last year is what's called Sky Talks. So Sky Talks are basically, talks that are not recorded, and you're not allowed to like bring any technology really into the room, take it out, your phone or anything. It's very private, high level security stuff. A lot of times relating to the government. So those will be back, I believe, this year, and those are a really cool thing. If you want to, check those out, make sure you make it there because they won't be recorded.
Agreed. Yeah, those, and usually there's a line to get into those.
Yeah.
Those are in really high demand. If there's a Sky Talk you want to go to, like, get in line. You're gonna need to get in line like, 45 minutes
Early.
early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of some of the things you can check out on day one, and just some ideas from two different perspectives on, do you want to go merch, you want to go to villages? I mean, afterwards, like last year, I went as soon as I was done with merch, I went to all the villages. This is exactly what I did. So I popped around to each one, checked them out. Now, like I said, if you want to do a hacking challenge that's associated with automotive or medical, I would go there first, just so that you can be ready, you can be registered, you can understand when it's going to take place. It's not always the first day, right? It may be day two, day three. There may be multi-day ones. It just depends. So A lot of
Right,
good
and you
stuff
can
there.
hang out there and join a team. I
Yeah,
did that one year. I wanted to participate in one of the, it wasn't like a competitive CTF. It was more of like an intro one,
yeah,
and sat down, started working on it. Other people were in the area. I was like, hey, do you want to work together on this? And we ended up putting together a team of like 4 people to work on it.
yeah, yeah. So there's
And
some
so yeah,
cool. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that's like, going back to good ways to meet people, participating in these kinds of things, that's a good way to meet people. If you have any, gadgets, hacking gadgets, I think we both have Flipper Zeros. We were talking about it before the webinar. You know, Play around with it. Someone might walk up to you and be like, oh, hey, what are you doing? And then start up a conversation. Or if you see someone who has some cool stuff on them, they've got some cool tech, or they're doing something, you know, they're wearing that, they're doing that for a reason. They want to engage with people. Go up and ask them what they're doing, start up a conversation. Like everybody is really nice and welcoming for that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you brought that up. That's exactly where I was going to go with it is ways to meet people. So one of the other cool things is DEF CON has lots of events that are like throughout the day that may not necessarily be like hacking related. Like they've got certain like, chill out meditation, place to go and do that. They've got like, I'll give you an example. Last year, I told you I went with one of my sales reps. He's a big runner. So he loves going running. He runs all the time. He's run like 2 marathons already this year. And they actually have a DEF CON run in the mornings. And he went there and he met like 35 people there. I mean, it was awesome. He has pictures of him in the group by the Vegas sign and stuff like that. So, if you're into like some type of event like that you see in the schedule, that's also a really good place to meet people.
Right. I mean, there's all kinds of smaller stuff like that that's agreed, not specifically tech related. And there's like a big counterculture community around DEF CON as well. So, every year there's like a furry mini con within the DEF CON umbrella. I assume that's going to happen again this year. I've
Yep.
never checked it out. I don't know. Maybe I will this year. But there's other kinds of random stuff too, like Blanket Fort Con, where I presume people are just creating a city of a blanket fort. I don't know. I haven't been before. Like, there's so much to do. You really cannot possibly do it all. But all those kinds of random side things are also really great ways to meet people. And typically those have smaller attendance. And so it does give you that opportunity to meet people. Whereas in the main con area, there's just too many people to really make a connection.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of ties in with the fact that DEF CON is really open and accepting. Like, really, it doesn't matter what you do, who you are, whatever. Everyone respects everyone else. So I personally have never had a rude experience at DEF CON ever.
No, me neither.
So yeah, I mean, as long as you respect others and what they want to do, and you'll be fine. So you can talk to anyone. It's the way to go.
Right. Be
So
respectful, be open, be yourself, and, be chill. I would say those are some good rules for DEF CON.
yeah, yeah. And so okay, cool. Let's talk about a little about kind of, what we're gonna bring to DEF CON,
Hmm.
how to stay cyber safe. Like I really want to make sure we touch on those two, and then maybe we'll tell you some party stories about,
And what
what's
what
happened
to
in the past.
wear?
Yeah,
I
what to
mean,
wear, of course.
I mean, the first thing, comfortable shoes. It's not going to be as bad this year, but you will be doing a lot of walking. So wear comfortable shoes. And beyond that, you can wear whatever you want. There's really no rules. Um, there seems to be like a really big contingent of people that like to wear kilts. That seems to be a thing, particularly tactical kilts. Um, is that what you like to wear?
I was gonna say, I mean, not necessarily this bucket hat. I do love Scooby, but I wore a bucket hat last year because I wear bucket hats from now and then, and I gotta tell you, normally you see like someone else wearing whatever goofy thing you're wearing. No one was wearing bucket hats. So it was
Yeah,
really easy for me to find my sales rep in the crowd because he's the only other guy with the bucket hat on. So,
you
you
look
could
a
kind of
lot better in a bucket hat than I do. I cannot wear those hats.
Thanks. So I even actually ended up buying one at the con. They had as part of the merch area, or not the merch, the market area. They had a guy selling all sorts of crypto stuff like ledgers and like things like crypto
Hmm.
hardware devices. And he was also selling software, and he was selling Monero bucket hats. So I actually have a Monero bucket
Hmm.
hat I got last year. But that's another thing, right? If you're gonna get stuff, which I highly recommend you do, leave some space in your luggage because
Mm,
the
good
the
point.
worst thing to do is pack it to the gills going there, and then when you get there, you're like, I don't have another carry-on. I can't bring this bag. I have my personal items. So leave some space for what you're going to get. That's one of the things I learned the hard way last year when going to the merch.
Yeah, and there's cool stuff you can get there that you really can't get anyplace else, or is not convenient to get anyplace else. Hacker tools, um, you know, dictionaries of data dictionaries, all kinds of
Hardcore stuff.
yeah, all kinds of cool stuff that you may not think you want before you get there, but then once you get there, you're like, oh, damn, like I need to go and, have, Best Buy deliver a giant hard drive to me at my hotel so tomorrow I can go and put a bunch of like amazing stuff on there. So yeah, like definitely leave room and you know, back to what to wear. Like I'm a t-shirt and shorts guy.
Same.
Do know that it's probably boiling hot outside and freezing inside, so like you might need a jacket or a hoodie or something like that for when you're inside. Be prepared for those like different temperature changes.
And you can always pick up a hoodie there because they're going to sell them in
That's
merch and
true
they're going to sell them
also.
in the market. So if you want to
Good
like,
point.
you're like, oh, I want something, you can like preemptively just go and get so you don't have to pack it on the way there. Now,
But you do have to pack it on the way home.
exactly. So leave space. Bring cash, right? That's a big one. Everything there pretty much is cash. So they're not going to be doing credit cards. I mean, frankly, you don't want to be bringing your credit card out anywhere near any of these people at the conference if you can avoid it. So if you can bring cash, that's the way to go. All the badges are cash. Most of the marketplace is cash. The merch might do card, but I don't remember. I think I paid cash
A
there too.
lot of the stuff in the like I don't know, vendor merch area, you can pay cards with.
Yeah,
I'm not afraid of all the hackers around. Like, well, first of all, I feel like there's a lot less hacking going on than there used to be. I remember my first year and like everything was hacked. It was posted on the walls like the IP address and password for the cameras in the bathrooms and every, every elevator was hacked and like
yeah,
just like any piece of technology, you saw, at least the first time I went, like someone had compromised that thing. It
yeah.
doesn't seem to be as bad in that sense anymore. But like from a personal perspective, yeah, there's stupid things you can do that's gonna, you know, get your machine or your phone or whatever messed up. But for the most part, like I think it's overblown that you really have to worry about, someone hacking your personal devices.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brett. And I don't bring a burner personally. But of course I do keep all my stuff off, location, NFC, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, like that's all shut down for the con on my phone. And I actually use like one of these, right? So this is a Mission Darkness Faraday bag. So you can kind of get one of these and roll it up, or they've got smaller ones like this. They've got wallet-sized ones. So, and actually, even if you want to go big, this one's from ThoughtCon, but this is like the full-size one where you can. And all this is Faraday, right? So if you got something like that, it'd be good to bring, um, just to have. And I'd say on top of that, what I'm personally bringing is, I'm bringing something like this, right? Like a fanny pack, or one of the ones that really light backpacks that you can sling over, and they're like maybe this big. Because just going around, you can like put your charger in there, you can have your cords, you can have anything you want, your cash, everything can be in there, and you can put all in a Faraday bag if you want, to kind of be super secure. In addition to that, of course, I'm bringing Flipper Zero. Um, you can bring any hack tools you want, right? So I'm gonna have my Bash Bunny. I've got the Wi-Fi auditing adapter from Hack 5. I do like Hack 5. I've got some other custom stuff that I've made, and then of course I have, as I mentioned earlier, lock picks. So I love lock picking. I was first introduced to it at DerbyCon the last year before it just shut down, and it was just so much fun. So I did the same thing. I bought a bunch of lock pick, bought a bunch of practice locks. I actually just got two more lock picking books yesterday. And they're really really good actually. So
Oh, really? You'll have
yeah,
to share
yeah,
with those with me after.
I will. They've got pictures of like every single lock, and they break them all down into the subcomponents and show you exactly how they work and how to clone. It's just really, really interesting stuff if you're into that.
Cool.
So those are some things I'm bringing. Like I said, if you want to be like super anal secure, like truly secure, burner phone, burner laptop or tablet. Do
Uh,
I think you need that? No. Do
a burner phone, I definitely don't think you need. Um, it's the one time a year where I feel like a VPN service is really important. Um, I have concerns about VPN services in general. I don't think they're, you know, the sliced bread that everybody likes to talk about. But in this case, I think a VPN service is helpful. I do bring like a dedicated laptop for this. So I like reimage a laptop and I put, Kali Linux on it or something for this event, and then I reimage it afterwards. It's the only, I would say that's one of the only things I do to stay safe. And I like you mentioned, I turn off, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that on my phone. Um, if you want to use Wi-Fi, when you get the DEF CON materials, it'll tell you how to download um, like the key to get into set up an account and get your personalized key to attach to the like real official DEF CON Wi-Fi. Because if you try to connect to anything else, you're likely connecting to, you know, somebody's device that they're trying to capture all of your information. So that's the kind of like passive individual like hacking that people are doing at the conference. So they're not gonna, it's very, very, very unlikely that anyone's gonna like actively try to get into your system. But if you do something like connect to some promiscuous Wi-Fi device, yeah, then you might get hacked, or you might end up on, you know, the wall that's showing everybody that's connected to the Wi-Fi that you're not supposed to connect to.
Yeah, they basically dox people in real time. It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
And to add on to that, I remember, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago when I went, someone had brought their own like plug in your tablet here and charge it thing, and like over 500 people like actually plugged it in and it exploited all of them. And then they used that next year to present at DEF CON on it. So
right.
don't trust anything, not just the Wi-Fi's. Do not plug into anything at the conference. I mean, if obviously it's a wall socket that's like something
Power
that
is
looks like,
fine. Power is
yeah.
fine.
I mean,
But
I
yeah,
still bring my
no
own.
no USB ports,
Yeah,
nothing like that.
I still bring my own power adapters. So I'll bring like a charging bricks, one or two, and then I'll charge them at the hotel. And that way I have that on the demand, just because I'm like much more on the anal end than Brett is. So,
Yeah.
uh, just after that presentation, I'm like not plugging in, not plugging in anymore. So those are just kind of a few things to think about.
Mhm.
And yeah, as long as you do that stuff, you should. And honestly, if you follow everything Brett said, you shouldn't have any problems.
Yeah, talking about credit cards again for a second, I would say if you're going to use an ATM machine, use one that's in like a very visible area with lots of people around, and preferably on like the casino floor
Yeah, go
where
ask them. Say, where's
where
your
they,
ATM?
well, but you know, sometimes even in the casino, there's going to be like an ATM that's like off in the corner.
Yeah,
Don't use that one.
Yeah.
use the one that's like in the middle of the casino floor that has lots of eyes on it all the time. I would say
Yeah.
that would be like my one other piece of advice, um, because those kind of off the beaten track ATM machines, those might be compromised.
And definitely don't connect to hotel Wi-Fi because that will be getting exploited and hacked, and people on that will get hacked and exploited. So if you're going to connect to official DEFCON, that's one thing, but don't even trust the hotels. Don't trust anything in the area, pretty much.
Yeah, stay on your cellular if you can. If you need Wi-Fi, use a VPN if it's going to be one, something that you don't trust. Um, and you'll be fine. It's really, people make a bigger deal out of it than it really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's, you know what it is when you get a bunch of hackers together. It's always worst case scenario, right? Plan for
Hmm.
the worst, hope for the best, as we like to say. So, yeah, man. And so, all right, cool. Let's talk about some of the kind of some of the party stuff, maybe some of the other, last things. I know we got about 10 minutes left, 9 minutes. I want to make sure we wrap up on time so that you guys can
Yeah,
get
and
back
if
to
anyone has questions about anything we've talked about or anything we haven't talked about, either put it in the chat or there's like a Q&A button in the top right, at least on my screen with like a little
yeah.
question mark. Feel free to put it in there and we'll talk about it here live.
Yeah. So, just to kind of start the discussion. So I'll give you an example of like one of the more mainstream parties that I went to, probably my first or second year at DEF CON. So a lot of the times, bigger companies like Rapid Seven or like stuff like that, they'll rent out entire casinos, right? Like they'll rent out like when I went, it was they rented out the entire Hakkasan nightclub, which is like 3 or 4 floors, and they had, I went in there and I didn't know what to expect. And there's a bar on every floor. It's dark. There's an elevator that takes you up and down, or stairs. It was packed with kids. The craziest thing was on every floor they had like 3 or 4 LED screens, and they were playing Halo in the club on the LED screens on every level. So there was like this massive Halo game going on, while everyone's like, partying and drinking at like 11 o'clock at night. So that's one of the first experiences I had at DEF CON party wise, and it was a fun time.
Yeah, I don't personally like those like really big crowded parties. I might pop into
Yeah,
one for like a free drink, but I don't know. I've liked it when they've done pool parties. I think
yeah,
those are a little bit more spread out and chill. I've met some cool people doing that. Um, yeah, I tend to like the smaller stuff
me too.
that isn't as loud, isn't as crazy.
I think that might have been like the first and only nightclub party that I've gone to at DEF CON. Like I pretty
Right.
much avoid them like the plague. Um, and just real quick, Tasha in chat, she asked about how much cash you recommend. So that really depends on what you want to buy. Like if you're gonna buy
Yeah.
stuff, I'd bring a couple $100, like maybe $400 or $500. If you're gonna, it really what do you want to spend? I guess is a better question, right? Because there's tons of stuff there that you'll want to buy. So, if you're going to be doing merch, you want to add some more cash. If you're going to be doing the market and doing stuff there, you want to add some more cash. If you plan on getting badges, I told you those can be expensive, between like $250, $400 typically. So you want to bring that cash. What I did last year was I brought some cash and then I used like a public ATM, like Brett mentioned during the con, to take cash out, away from the convention center. So, um,
And you're going to want to do some gambling. It's convenient to have for
yeah,
gambling also. You're going to use the cash, like
yeah.
take out a little more cash than you expect to want to use, and you know, it doesn't go bad. You can take it home if you don't spend it.
Exactly. So yeah, and I'd say, just to go back to the topic. Oh, here we go. And one more. Is a clear way to go to get the DEF CON badge for those who pre-ordered? Yeah, it should be in the same. I mean,
Very
this is a new
clear.
venue. Yeah, it's very clear
Yeah,
though. It's
but it's
typically in
very
the
clear.
exact same place that people are buying their badge. They're all in like one big room.
And Brian mentioned the goons. So the goons are the staff that um, make DEF CON run. They're volunteers, they're fantastic, and they're part of like what makes the DEF CON community. And they'll be in these bright red goon shirts. They'll be all over the place. and they'll be directing people, particularly at the beginning of the con. They'll be saying like, okay, go this way for your badges. And if at any point like you're not sure, just walk up to anyone with a red goon shirt and ask them, and they'll tell you which way to go. Um, so we've got another question about all the possible sessions. Use the hacker tracker. That's going to give you all the session information and all the official party information. Unofficial stuff, uh, I usually go to the DEF CON forum. I think, Brian, you said you prefer, what was, are you mostly
Yeah,
on
DEF CON
Reddit
subreddit.
or
Yeah.
DEF CON subreddit? So yeah, there's different places to go for that information. Um, but if you go to the DEF CON webpage, there's a link for the forum and you'll find all the information there. Um, yeah, Hacker Tracker is available on iOS and Android. Let's see.
I think we got them all. Um,
Okay,
if
cool.
more come in, we'll keep an eye on it. Only about 4 minutes left. If you guys have anything else, of course, you want to ask, feel free. Oh, here's one more. When will DEF CON publish the detailed schedule so we can plan our schedule? So the detailed schedule is in Hacker Tracker right now. So you can go in
Oh,
Hacker
is it?
Tracker.
Okay.
It should be. I think it came out like this week. But if you look, like
Oh,
they've got like
nice.
all content, speakers, schedules, and you can click on these and actually see. It's like a detailed layout of when they are, where they are. They're all color coded so that you can figure out like, is it an event, is it a talk, is it a something like a village, right? So they're color coded in there. It's really easy to use. I would 100% use that all the time. It's fantastic.
Agreed. So yeah, that's your primary source for all of the non-official stuff, DEF CON forum, Reddit. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and just to add on that one, the DEF CON party planner. You definitely want to check out that website because that's like
Oh, yes.
most holistic level of organization of parties and things like that. There's also defcon.social, which is kind of an interesting little forum and place to go where all the guys are on that. Um, yeah, no, I think it's definitely safe to bring your phone as long as you turn off Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, near field location, right? Anything that's going out and able to be sniffed or is looking somewhere else than cellular. And like Brett said, definitely want to bring a VPN for your cell phone when you use it, just to have another layer of security.
Okay, I think that pretty much gets us to time here. Any last final thoughts, Brian?
No, I mean, thanks so much for coming, guys, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
I had a great time talking with you, Brian. I'm really
me
looking
too.
forward to DEF CON. We should meet up. Anybody else who's on this or sees this after it's been put up on YouTube, reach out. Probably the easiest way to reach me is on LinkedIn. And, let me know. And I'll be at the Biohacking Village a bunch, but I'll also be around. Happy to, meet anyone who wants to meet up in person.
Same here, guys. Feel free to reach out and yeah, the links. Let me give you. So here's. I'll push the links into the thread. Give me 1 second.
Great. While he's doing that, I'll just say, get ready for a great time. Like, this
Yeah,
is probably my favorite event of the year. Um, the best people, the most interesting stuff, fun stuff going on 24 hours a day. You really couldn't ask for more. So, get hyped up and start planning out what you're going to be doing there.
yep. Yeah, we're already psyched. My buddy was telling me, he's like, I already started packing last week. I'm like, you're
Nice.
hilarious. So I put in the manuals chat. There's a Reddit, the DEF CON Reddit. There's the party planner I linked. That's the Azure prod thing. Then of course DEF CON official website is, I think it's just defcon.org. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so
defcon.org is
too.
the official one.
And we'll make sure when this is posted to YouTube that all the links are in the notes as well. All right,
Awesome.
we are at
Thanks so much,
time.
y'all.
Thank you very much and hope to see
Enjoy
you
your
at
time at
DEF
DEF
CON.
CON. Yeah. All right.